Hey ladies, this is session 7. Today we are in the section leading across, and we're going to talk about building relationships. And so you guys have heard me quote many times Jim Rohn saying, success is something you attract by the person you become. We talked last month about teamwork with the leadership loop, realizing that success is based on the person that you become, but you're never going to become successful without a good support system. So my question to you ladies today is, how are you building your relationships, both personal and professional, that are going to support your success and your growth? So the more broadly you connect with people, the greater your potential to influence people is, right? And to be positively influenced by other people. So if you remember, we said influence is based on two things. It's based on building relationships, and it's based on adding value to others. So when you do those two things, you start to build up influence with the people around you. And so as we discuss building influence across, let's take some time to explore what that looks like outside of the office environment, right? Because this concept applies to everybody around us, right? Our partner, our friends, our coworkers,
our neighbors, everybody in our lives. Absolutely.
Yep. And listen, relationships are hard work. They require time and they require effort. This is not something that you just, I look at Emma across the room and I say, I want to build a relationship with her.
Boom, done.
Boom, relationship formed. That's kind of how it was with me and Emma. But everybody doesn't have love at first sight. Right. But today we're going to talk about ways that we can work to strengthen the relationships that we have. So remember, relationships are a key in how much influence you have with a person.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right with Jim Rohn's quote. There's so much truth to it, because success isn't just about you as an individual, but it's about, and your achievements alone, but it's about the connections that you build with others and the success you have as a group. And having a strong support system is only going to help you be more successful in life. And as you mentioned, relationships are so hard, and it takes a lot of effort and it takes intention to grow those relationships. I mean, everybody's had a friendship that if you don't put the effort in, especially at the beginning, it will just fizzle out and it won't ever go anywhere. So you've got to put that time in and you've got to put that effort in. And so today we're going to look at some of the ways that you can build those relationships and how you can, be better at growing your support system in doing so.
I love that you use the word intention, because you know how I feel about that word. But I think when we, as we talk about building relationships, like there definitely should be some intention in how, not only how we build those relationships, but who we build those relationships with.
Absolutely.
Because you and I talked about this a little bit earlier, but if we surround ourselves with people that only like the same things that we like, or are only in the same job that we're in, or, you know what I mean? We're surrounding ourselves just with yes people that'll look at us and say, oh, you're right? And so regardless, I talk a lot about my truth and my reality is different than your truth and your reality. And so if I don't intentionally start to form relationships with people that are different than me and have had different experiences than me and know different things than I am, then I'm really limiting myself.
Absolutely. I think that in building relationships with people who are different than you, in diversity, people who are genuine, you are growing in doing that, because you're not just in an echo chamber of somebody who's just going to agree with everything you say. Your focus is going to be very narrow. By building relationships that are more diverse, you're going to have a more broader view. And we have talked about before of having that too, of people who you can trust, who can then, come back to you and say, hey, no, I don't think this is right. And they're not doing it because they are trying to undermine you, but having had that trust, you might take that information and you're broadening your horizons in doing so.
Exactly. And relationships are all about trust, right? So
Yes,
when you build these relationships, you build that trust with a person. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, maybe you should think about this a different way. If that's somebody I've built a relationship with, I trust that they have my best intentions at heart.
Exactly. So, I think it's really important. It's important to cherish and cultivate those relationships and, continue to grow yourself in doing so and grow others around you, right? You're not just adding value to them, they're adding value to you too. One of the things that we can do to build relationships is to have follow through, right? How many times has somebody said, "Oh, hey, yeah, no problem, Faith, I'll do that for you," and then they never follow through with it, and that is going to completely deplete the trust that you have in them, right?
100%. How many of us have that friend who agrees to the night out, but you already know they're going to come up with some sort of an excuse to get out of it? Or maybe that friend is you.
Are you
or
that friend?
Maybe. Sometimes. Listen, as we get older, it certainly seems like more of an effort to make it out of the door. But reliability and trustworthiness is crucial in any relationship, whether it's a personal relationship or a professional relationship. So if you make commitments and promises, it's really important to follow through with them.
Yes.
Because this helps build trust and shows that you value the other person's time and their expectations.
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, this isn't just about, in your professional relationship, but in your personal relationship as well. I think it's really important to be true to your word. Right? If you say you're going to do something, that you do something, you don't want other people to do the same to you either.
Yep.
For example, I am involved in my neighborhood a lot, and we plan these parties all the time. And there's a couple of people that I know I can't ask them to help with stuff because they've already proven to me multiple times that they can't follow through with what they say they're going to do. And it's completely depleted any trust I had in going to them for anything.
Sorry. Listen, so we have a few examples of like what it looks like to follow through, or different areas to follow through on your commitment where it demonstrates integrity, reliability, and accountability. So this builds trust, which is crucial for influence and establishing positive relationship with other people. So in personal relationships, whether it's with your family, friends, your partner, following through on your promises and commitments is crucial for building trust. If you consistently deliver what you say you'll do, such as being there for them in times of need, or keeping your word on plans and commitments, or supporting them through challenges, you establish yourself as reliable and trustworthy. This can strengthen the bond and influence you have within these relationships.
Yep, absolutely. In personal relationships, being true to our word, as I said, shows people that you genuinely care about them and you're there for them as well. It will strengthen the bond and influence that you have with all of your connections within your life. Like you said, family, friends, within your church, all the personal relationships that you have, and it'll foster a deeper sense of trust.
Yep. And then in professional collaborations, so in a work setting, like we said, following through on your commitment is essential for building trust with your colleagues, right? Your superiors and your subordinates, right? So 360-degree leader, up, across, and down, right? When you consistently deliver high-quality work on time, you meet deadlines, you fulfill your responsibilities, you demonstrate reliability and competence. So others are going to come to trust your abilities and they're going to start relying on you, which can definitely lead to increased influence and then, possible collaboration or leadership roles even.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that demonstrating that you're competent, continuing to fulfill your commitments that you have in the workplace opens up opportunities for you that maybe you would not have had necessarily either. So,
another area is team projects. When you're working on your team projects, following through on your assigned tasks is crucial for building trust and influence among your teammates. So if you complete your responsibilities and you deliver quality work, you can show you're dependable and contribute to the overall success of the team. Remember, we said your success means very little against the success of the team. Or if your team is not successful, then,
if your team's not winning, then you're not winning.
Yeah. Right? No matter how good you are.
Exactly. So, demonstrating that you could be a responsible in that team effort, having that competency, continuing to build that collaboration with the rest of your team.
Yep.
So.
And then fourthly, client relationships. So in your professional interactions with customers, as almost any of our jobs involve, right? Sales, F&I, advisor, accounting, BDC, me, you, all of us, right? Following through on commitments is vital for building trust and fostering long-term relationships. So when you consistently deliver on promises, whether it's meeting deadlines, resolving issues promptly, providing exceptional service, the clients are going to come to trust your reliability and your expertise. And this trust can only lead to repeat business, which is good for you and for the organization, and it's going to increase your influence, in the industry and inside the organization, inside your department, the store, all of that.
Yes, absolutely. I think that it's so important that you continue to follow through on your commitments, especially to your customers as well, because not only will that build a trust with them, but then it starts to build the trust beyond them as well. Right. So if you have had a good experience somewhere, just think about in your own life, if you've had a good experience somewhere, you're more willing to not only go back, but tell your friends and family about it as well.
Yep. And listen, we have 49 stores, 50 doors, depending how you want to break it down. And I can tell you, everybody here in this office knows who our top advisors are, who our top salespeople are, who our top accounting staff and controllers are. We all know that. So as you do your job well, you start, your name starts getting out there. You start building this influence that you don't even know or realize
how far it can go.
Exactly. So thirdly, one of the ways that we build and strengthen our relationships is by saying what you mean. So I jumped ahead a little bit earlier when we talked about follow through, but say what you mean is really having integrity. Say what you mean what you say. We've all heard that before. But if we want to build trust and influence in our relationships, it's important. So we as women are so often accused of being passive aggressive, must be nice, right? or we have we have these fake friendships, and we refer to these other ladies as frenemies, right? And then go around spreading gossip and rumors. And another example that happens way too often is we're just unable to have the hard conversations that we know we need to have. And instead of being straightforward when somebody asks us something or asks us to do something, we kind of hedge it around it and be like, oh, maybe, I'm not quite sure about that. Instead of just being firm and saying what we need to say. So we'll start using qualifiers and hedging language to soften our statements or to avoid taking a firm stance on something. So this makes our opinions and our intentions unclear, and it creates confusion. So if we're not honest, sincere, and genuine with our words and following through on commitments, promises, and statements that we make, how are we ever going to build that trust and influence?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely correct that as women that we do fall into these stereotypes about and fall into these challenges of how we communicate. I don't know how many times it's been, I've seen it, with some of my employees. I've seen it that I've done it of kind of beat around the bush and what you want to say instead of clear. And that's not beneficial to anybody, right? But you do get the stereotype that you're too aggressive then if you're direct. But it's not going to benefit anybody if you continue to go along that path. And it will help to avoid any kind of misunderstandings. It helps to foster that trust that we've been working so hard with gaining, and just building on those connections by saying what you mean and meaning what you say.
Yeah, there are so many things that can happen when you're just unclear on your communication. And that's strained communications, misunderstandings, lack of trust, like you said, resentment, right? If I can't have the conversation with you that needs to be had, instead I'm holding all of that inside, and now I'm starting to secretly resent you because I can't get myself to sit in front of you and have a clear, positive, respectful conversation about things that I really need to get out, it can have a negative impact on teamwork and collaboration in the office, and it will 100% start to decrease your influence with those people around you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you say about, having, starting to build resentment. One of the things that I'm working on with my husband is our more open communication. I'm the worst about like holding everything in. I never like say what I mean about stuff, and then I start getting resentful toward him, and he has no idea, number one, that I'm doing that and it's happening. But it hurts the relationship and it hurts the connection by not being clear and honest and open in your communication.
Absolutely. This weakens all relationships, personal and professional. And so listen, there's a way to go about it. There's a way to communicate effectively and not, be respectful and be open and make sure that, and we talked a little bit about that in the past, like how do you have these hard conversations with your boss or your supervisor? But it's important in every relationship in our life that we are able to have these conversations. And y'all, I was telling Emma just a little bit ago that I think that you can only be successful in life if you are prepared to have the hard conversations and you know how to do them well. So I think that the people, so often we just let fear of the unknown or anxiety or whatever, keep us in the same place. But every successful woman that I know has been able to have a hard conversation, have a conversation about what does the next step look like for me? How do I do this? How can I learn? How can I grow? Yes. Or this is, this has to change. I'm putting boundaries in place. I'm not allowing this to happen. So every successful woman I know has been able to have those hard conversations. And so I'm just telling you now, if you refuse to kind of grow in this area, then it's going to be really hard to see success.
Yep, absolutely. And that's applicable to your personal life as well. You're going to continue to, we mentioned it before, get resentful or continue to get pulled into multiple different directions and spread too thin if you're not having those difficult conversations, setting those boundaries, and then being vocal about it.
So fifthly, a way to start building and strengthening these relationships is listening. Mm-hmm. That's probably the hardest thing to do, right? To listen to somebody else. So there's a quote in here by Arthur Richard Exley, and he says, "A true friend is one who hears and understands when you share your deepest feelings. He supports you when you're struggling. He corrects you gently and with love when you err. He forgives you when you fail. A true friend prods you to personal growth, stretches you to your full potential, and most amazing of all, he celebrates your successes as if they were his own." And so in this quote, which I love, because what a great definition of a friend, the entire process begins with listening. It's very rare when people go out of their way and make it a point to listen to somebody else, right? So active listening is an essential skill for building relationships inside and outside the office. Just let's show genuine interest in what the other person has to say, practice empathy, and provide them with your undivided attention. So interrupting or assuming what already know what they're going to say is, a way to kind of destroy trust in relationships.
Yes, absolutely. I found that if you interrupt people or you don't let them continue with their thought, it will stop what their communication is in its tracks sometimes. And so going back to even the beginning of kind of growing yourself by surrounding yourself with people who aren't necessarily fully like-minded, you've closed that door to any kind of influence that you would have had with them.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. And so being able to listen to people does a few things. So it enhances your understanding. When we actively listen to other people, we gain a deeper understanding of their thoughts, their feelings, their perspectives that we talked about. By paying attention to their words and their nonverbal cues and emotions, we can empathize with their experiences and see things from their point of view.
Yes, it also helps to build trust. Actively listening demonstrates respect and the value for the other person's thoughts and opinions, and it is the cornerstone of any relationship. I mean,
As previously.
Yes. How much do we talk about trust in relationships being so highly important?
Most important thing.
Yes. And attentive listening will help to build that crucial element in a relationship.
Yeah, agreed. It also encourages open communication. So active listening creates like a safe and welcoming environment for open communication. So when somebody knows and understands that they're heard without judgment or interruption, they're more likely to express themselves openly and honestly.
Absolutely. It also helps to deepen our connections and intimacy. When we listen with care and compassion, it nurtures our emotional connections, creating a sense of closeness and intimacy within the relationship.
Yep. Also, it resolves conflict and strengthens teamwork. So listening is essential for resolving conflicts. I mean, in relationships, imagine when, you and your husband are just talking at each other.
Oh, yeah.
And like that happens, right? In the worst arguments, like neither of you can get a word in edgewise because you don't care to hear what that other person has to say. But if you actually sit back, then you'll start to realize that there are underlying reasons why this tension is there. It's not just because he forgot to unload the dishwasher, right? There's more that's involved there. So this is going to help us to like kind of find common ground, seek compromises, work towards resolution. It fosters collaboration in team environments, just actively listening.
Absolutely. And the final thing it does is it shows respect and validation. By listening attentively, it's a powerful way for us to show our respect for others. It makes them feel valued and acknowledged in the relationship.
I think that all of us should try to be more intentional with our active listening. I think it's something that you have to practice because it's not, I don't think it's natural. Well, so for some people it may be natural. For me, it's not natural. I have to tell myself in my head, like, look this person in the eyes, listen. It's hard for me, and I'm sorry.
No, I agree. I think it's really hard. I always try and like think of what my response is going to be instead of paying attention necessarily to what it is you're saying. Like, oh, I got the gist enough. So now I can start working on my response in my head.
Because I know what else you're going to say.
But then I might get thrown for a loop and like my response means nothing at that point. But it's really hard. I'm very intentional now. I haven't always been about active listening because it is not natural. I don't think for most people it's not a natural thing. But
so ladies, go out and practice some active listening skills this week, okay? So lastly, we're going to talk about avoiding judgment. In any relationships, it's important to approach other people with an open mind and without passing judgment. So we need to recognize that people have different backgrounds, experiences, and beliefs than us. We need to be able to accept and appreciate these differences rather than criticize or imposing our own values onto other people. And then by embracing diversity and avoiding judgment, you create a welcoming and inclusive environment for strong and meaningful relationships. So do unto others. We've all heard this before. We all have things that we regret or things that we're ashamed of. I know I certainly have things that I don't broadcast to most people because I don't want to be judged for them, right? My point is here, we should give other people that same courtesy, right?
Absolutely.
We don't know what another person's life experiences have been or why they've made decisions that they have.
Yeah, I think it's hard. I always try to look at people and think that, like, I don't know what got them to this point. You know, maybe something's going on in their day and this is why they're being this way, but they always say don't judge a book by its cover, right? You've heard that 1,000 times because you really don't know what's going on deep down. And I don't want people to take maybe a bad day or a bad moment in my time and like judge that's my character now, that's who I am.
Yep.
And I think you close yourself off to opportunities with people by putting that judgment on them, by placing that judgment on them. And just because they come off a certain way doesn't mean that they don't have something of value for you or that you can add value to them.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's exactly right. And then we've said this before on these same videos that like we always want people to judge us by our intentions.
Yes.
But we're so quick to jump and judge somebody else by what we see, right?
Yes.
And we don't know their intentions. And so, I think that when we choose to avoid judgment, we create an environment of like acceptance and understanding and support, and this can lead to deeper connections. We can have better communication. We can, like, I trust you that if I tell you something that you're not going to immediately jump to like the worst conclusion or judge me for it. Like,
I will.
we can maybe you will.
Sorry. I won't, I promise. I'm not judgy at all.
The non-judgy friends, I trust that I can tell them all of the bad, dark secrets that I hold, and we can work through them together.
Well, if they're a true friend, too, I think that's the other thing, is if they are a true friend, they're not going to hold that against you. Because, like you said, all of those things that have happened in your life in the past, or even that you did yesterday, made you who you are today. It doesn't define you fully, right? But and so there's no reason to judge by that.
Yeah, and again, if a true friend I trust, and so while they may not be judging me, they still may tell me, okay, well, this wasn't a good idea. You need to think about this more, right? And so that's not necessarily judgment, but being able to get like advice and feedback and truth from somebody that's outside of my own brain is helpful, but that's not necessarily judgment.
No, it's if you're opening up communication and you're opening up kind of that free speech by knowing that I'm not going to judge you and you're not going to judge me if we're having a conversation about it. Yep. You're opening yourself up to more opportunities then.
Yep. So when we go into our relationships avoiding judgment, it allows more openness and acceptance. There's more room for trust and vulnerability in the relationship. There is more empathy and understanding in the relationship. You have better conflict resolution.
Absolutely.
It leads to personal growth. And then you have that support and encouragement inside those relationships. Yeah,
which is, all of those are so important in your personal relationships and in your professional relationships as well. 100%. So we want to continue to cherish and nurture those connections with people and offer that, non-judgmental, ear, right?
Yep.
So,
yeah, agreed. Final thoughts, be a friend, right? Being a true friend involves being present, reliable, providing a source of emotional support, which strengthens relationships. What does it mean to you to be a friend?